All right, today we're tying Richie's Frumpy Toad. This comes in two sizes. We have the 1/0, which is what we're tying today, and a size 2. The only difference is this Staz. I use the petite for the size 2, and for the rabbit strips, I'll use micro rabbit fur for the size 2. But that's about it. For the only difference is super easy fly to tie, kills the largemouth bass. I'm sure it would kill smallmouth bass. We're in South Florida, so we don't really have that much of an option, but I've seen snakehead come out of the woodworks for this thing. Super easy to throw, easy to tie. It's the perfect fly for your box to fill them up, get some topwater action, and looking forward to going to Flamingo and trying this on a redfish. So I used to use red thread for this color combo. I tie it in chartreuse and red, and I also tie it in brown and yellow. The top foam color is going to be 3mm. You guys pick whatever colors you want to do. We can make a box up for you at Old Florida and get you all set up if you want to start tying these. But the top color is going to be a 3mm foam, and the bottom color is going to be a 2mm foam. So I tie in about a 2-inch piece of a Staz to sort of separate the rabbit strips. And I really like the rabbit strip combos that they have for colors on the for the 1/0, the regular size, because you can get a ton of color combos. I'm using yellow over barred chartreuse for this. So this ball sort of separates them, keeps the legs apart so that they don't really foul up. I also tie in the rabbit strips in about 1.5 inch pieces. So those pieces help, you don't use that much material, so you have you can tie a bunch of these up without using a ton of your supply. But yeah, we've been fishing these a lot. I've been catching a lot. I was super stoked, just tied these and caught a fish right on the first cast. I couldn't believe it. I'll tie these rabbit strips leather side down, and I sort of pinch the leather before I tie it in. I'm going to tie it on each side of this chartreuse Staz ball. And these strips are about, like I said, they're not too big. They're only about 1.5 to 2 inches. But I never had a problem with these getting fouled up or anything like that, so it's a great fly. So pinch that leather, squish it in next to the hook shank, and then tie it in. If you have any problems, just pinch it and move it around. I try to keep everything really tight and neat on this because I'm about to tie in a bunch of foam, and when you tie in the foam, you want it to be the foam to be tight to the shank of the hook so it doesn't roll when you catch a million fish on it. This fly holds up really, really well too. I've caught 50 plus bass on one of these flies, and it's still going. It's all torn to hell though. All right, so I'm gonna tie this one. This is the 2mm foam, and it's about 2 inches in length. I'm gonna tie it in right after that bump. And I want this to be tied all the way up to about an eye length from the hook, from the eye. 1 eye length from the eye, so I can tie in my weed guard. You don't have to tie in a weed guard if you don't want to, but it's always nice to have it if you don't know where you're going to be fishing and you want to try to avoid some stuff for lily pads, or throw it into the mangroves or wherever you may be. After you tie in your first strip, you have to tie in your second strip. The second strip is the 3mm foam. And this is going to be a longer strip because I'm going to fold it over. I start tying it in about 1/3 of the ways down past the 1/3 below the eye of the hook. And it's sort of like a loose tie. And I tie this all the way down. it's funny that I've been tying a lot of topwater flies because I sort of hate topwater fishing, but I've been having such success with it that it's been really fun. It sort of got me on them now. And these flies are so easy to tie. Now, this is the most material you're going to use. I use about a 10-inch piece of stage, and this is going to go up the whole shank. You sort of have to tie this in first because there's centipede legs, and those centipede legs will get in the way if you don't tie this thing in first. So I'll tie this in. You can just move it back behind here or up on one of these things if you have it on your vise. So it depends on how fancy your vise is, but just get it out of the way. Now I use centipede legs. I just use the chartreuse and black checkered ones. I'm just going to X-wrap these in like a Pat's rubber leg. These I use them, they're a little bit denser and thicker so they don't get fouled up. I like having the thicker legs on these flies. And I use the same size for the size 2. And I just X-wrap them in. After I X-wrap them in, I'm going to bring the thread all the way to the front, about the eye length behind. I'm going to pull these centipede legs forward, and I'm going to go around them once or twice just to hold them in place while I palmer this staz all the way up the front. So I got the name of this fly. My wife was getting ready. We were going date night, and she's talking to me. I'm tying flies, and she's still asking, "Hey, do I look frumpy? Do I look frumpy?" And I'm like, "Baby, you look great." But this is the Frumpy Toad, so that's how we got the name. But you just tie it, and once you get behind the legs, I tie about 2 times behind the legs, and then I'll release them, and then I'll pull the legs back. And now I'm just going to do about 1 or 2 wraps in front now. And then I'm going to tie it off here. And you're basically done with the fly here at this point. At this point, I'm going to fold the foam over. You can give it a little bit more or less, but I just fold it over. The more you fold it back, the more wind resistance you have, and it's going to be way harder to throw it. So I keep it pretty tight. I just do it about 1 or 2 wraps, and I pull it down, and that's about it. So I'm going to pull these threads up, the foam up, and I'm going to start a little thread base there, keep this back, and I'm going to invert it so I can tie in a weed guard. You don't have to put the weed guard like I said, but it's good to have it, and if you don't need it, you can just cut it off later. So I'll just flip it over. This has always been like a hard part for me, just to keep the foam out of the way. I always use glue too once I get these guys in, because mine like to fall out sometimes. But I'll do a couple wraps, then I'll go around them a couple times and then pull it down and cinch it. And then I'm going to do a couple of whip finishes, and we're almost there. At this point, I put the glue on it, and I'll cut this off as long as I need it to be, but I'll do it about here. I don't go too crazy with it. And then now it's just the finishing for the fly. I like to sort of take these rabbit strips, and I'm going to cut them into arrows. It just makes it look clean at the end of it all. Do it with your tarpon toads. Do it with all your, rabbit strip flies. It just looks nice. Makes it look professional. Tie them into little points. Cut them into little points for presentation. It doesn't catch any more or less fish. And about here, I'm going to give it about 1 inch. I'll cut straight across, and then I'll pull this back, and I cut the 2mm foam down the center, and then I'll do 1 more across so that's sort of flush with the top piece. But that's about it. I'm going to cut these legs back to a scotch so that they're not too long, but keep them as long or short as you want. But that's the Frumpy Toad. Give us a call at the shop. We'd love to talk about it, and I hope you have some tight lines and happy fishing.